Discussion of this combination of folkloric and modern composition. And to lead us through this will be Peter Marsh, who is an assistant professor of music at Cal State East Bay, where he teaches both ethnomusicology and musicology. His principal area of research is in the music and culture of Mongolia and Inner Asia. He's presented numbers of papers, including several for us here at the Institute of East Asian Studies at Berkeley, but he's also presented in non-academic settings, including at the American Museum of Natural History, the Smithsonian Folk Life Festival, Humanities West, and also the annual Cowboy Poetry Gathering, which is quite wonderful. His presentation today is going to draw from his latest book, which is titled The Horsehead Fiddle and the Reimagination of Tradition in Mongolia, Current Issues in Ethnomusicology. This book was just published in 2009, and it examines the development of the two-string folk fiddles, which we've been hearing about, like the horsehead fiddle, and their folklorization in Mongolian folk music in the 20th and 21st centuries. So let's welcome Peter Marsh.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to share the stage with Dr. Mend-Ooyo and Dr. Sharav, who I've respected for many years, and it's just a great thrill of mine to be here. It's interesting to hear them talk because they each brought out or addressed some issues that I'm going to be talking about in my talk here. Differing sides of tradition in contemporary Mongolia, or really the question of what is our inheritance from the past in contemporary Mongolia and the world of today. Tonight, I hope that all of you have plans to go see the concert tonight, the folk music concert, which will be downstairs. There you will see you'll see folk music, it's a folk music concert, and you'll see two different kinds of folk music. And it is these two kinds of folk music that I want to talk to you about today, and sort of lead us through the understanding of why there's two different kinds of folk music represented on this concert, and how are these represented in Mongolia itself today. Because these really touch on some very deep issues about the past, about history, and about what role the history should play in contemporary Mongolia. Like I said, there's going to be two styles of music in tonight's concert, and these are styles that you could see if you go to Mongolia today. So, like, imagine that you go to Mongolia, and the first stop would be Ulaanbaatar, the capital city of Ulaanbaatar. You go to your hotel, you check in, dump your stuff, and you say, I want to go see a concert of folk music in Ulaanbaatar. You ask the hotel staff, and they'll say, well, go down the street to the academic theater, and you could see a professional ensemble of folk musicians performing. They do this all the time, oftentimes for tourists. Or let's say you're feeling a little bit lazy and you want to stay in a hotel, and you turn on the TV set, and you could very well see some examples of this as well. And we have any examples here. I'd like to maybe show you something that you could very well see on a TV set. This is something I got from YouTube, which is also very fitting to this, very fitting to this new world of folklore. And of music. The first one is something, as I say, you might see on YouTube or the television set, and this is a form of a performance of folk music that is very modern. I think if you see it, you would say this is very modern here. It uses a horsehead fiddle, the Moderator, which is the instrument that our performers were talking about today. But setting it up with high-scale animation, audio effects, let's see here, what else? It's clearly shot in a studio, so you get this, everything about it is digitized, this performance of this. And if you see this, you would say, well, definitely it's folk music, but clearly not what I was expecting to see in Mongolia, right? Clearly not a kind of folk music that there's something very new about this. Indeed, there is something all very new about this and how it's put together. If you were to, however, leave Ulaanbaatar and go off to the countryside, and say you go to the far western edge of Mongolia, and you go down to a small little province there, you might see another example of I was going to show another video clip of another kind of example, which takes place entirely within a herder's home called a ger. And the clip I have is of a family, a herder, with his family behind him. It's at night inside the ger, this yurt, and there's what he has is a very old fiddle, even older than the horsehead fiddle. It's called an ikhil, and it's an instrument that looks kind of like the horsehead fiddle, but it's much older than that. And he's playing with it there in the ger with the family around him. There's candles. Clearly, they just had dinner. They're relaxing, just having a good time. This is an example of something very different here in terms of what we saw compared to what we saw in the first image. For one thing, there's no special effects here. There's no soundtracks. There's no special digital effects going on. This is just the real thing, in a sense, that you're experiencing here. The sound of this instrument is very rough. In the performance in the video I wanted to show here is that he's having trouble keeping it in tune. But all the same, nobody seems to care, right? Nobody seems to care that the sound is not so great or the tuning isn't so great. The fact is that this herder was playing a tune, which was a dance tune, and you get the sense that had the people around him been a little bit more awake, maybe this is kind of late at night, they probably would have gotten up and danced. I mean, it was that kind of situation, all right? So what I'm laying out here is two very different situations of folk music in Mongolia. And it is these two that I want to talk about here today. What they do, in essence, they represent very different interpretations, very different, let me see here. Yeah, so each one of these examples really draws from very different social and cultural realities in Mongolia. And they represent really different ways of being Mongolian in Mongolia today. Mongolians recognize the difference between these two kinds of folk musics, and they use the terms, which is the term I have for the title of my talk today, Artin and Oksatni, to represent these two very different kinds of music. Artin music literally means of the people. Oksatni music literally means of the roots. And Artin Kukchum is both of these distinctions is something, these two terms is something that comes out of the 1920s, the 1930s, is the term from socialist cultural theorists to make a distinction between those types of music that are rooted in sort of the old world, and Artin music represents those kinds of cultural traditions that are part of this new world that socialism is bringing up, starting to develop. They called Hoft, the province of Hoft, down south, really away from any kind of city or towns or villages. We visited our herder, who was there with his family. You can see he's out, actually a neighbor is out herding their animals up the side of the mountain. Let's see how mountainous this is. Okay, now there's their home down there. You see these yurts, or the gers as they call them, and that's the encampment there. The herder that we went down to spend some time with herds several different kinds of animals, but the most biggest animal he has are the camels. You can see there's not much wood there. When we were there, then his neighbor came in to visit and brought his ikhil, his horsehead, his fiddle. The guy loves to smoke. He's 90-some years old, and he still climbs those mountains with his animals. He's still herding. Okay? He's 92, 93 years old. When we visited him, and he's still kicking it. You know, just out there doing stuff, coming by. He brought his fiddle for his friend and neighbor to tune and play some tunes for everybody. Play some tunes for us. So the neighbor is trying to tune it now, and he's having all kinds of troubles because it's such an old instrument. Here's a dance. You get a sense of the scene here, that this is taking place inside the Berger. Very special, just a very warm kind of atmosphere, very different from the professional kind of setting you would get on the stage in Ulaanbaatar, which is the other video I wanted to show there. And like I say, there's these two different kinds of music. Oksatni music, this would be considered Oksatni music, music of the roots. The professional music is really considered music of the people in a sense. And it has these biases that one is forward-looking and then one is stuck in the past. But by and large, these biases have been lost in the past decades, and today people use these terms as a category to define these two kinds of musics that are still out there. Oh, this is not... Okay, well, we'll get by anyways here. Yeah, this is, gosh, not the right one. Okay, well, it's okay. Let's keep going here. You can go next slide. Good. There we go. Okay. So I just wanted to say just very briefly about Mongolia itself. I'm sure many of you are aware of the situation in Mongolia, but I just want to kind of cover the basis here and lead into my discussion about this kind of music here. Traditionally, the Mongolians lived, of course, on the steppes, in the mountains, in the valleys of Mongolia, where life is very hard. Survival is very difficult in this land here. The geography, the climate make it really tough to make a living in this part of the world. But over thousands of years, the people who have traversed through this region of Mongolia have developed a form of economy, nomadic pastoralism, that's really ideally suited to this place, this land. The Mongols are just the last ones to have come through there in this region. And part of this has to do with the fact that they've developed these certain number of animals, a particular mixture of animals that they herd, and also the ability to move and nomadize is also an important part of this. To nomadize seasonally, going to places where there's no grass, water, different times of the year. This system, you can see, just get a sense of the kind of environment that we're dealing with here. Now, this system works when the Mongolians can maintain a set of interdependencies. They can't do this by themselves. They have to work with the world, the environment that's around them. So they develop interdependencies, for one thing, with themselves, building networks and communications and communities. They also develop connections with the natural and the animal world, and then thirdly, connections with the spiritual world. And what's interesting is that all three of these is critical to survival in the wild out here on the steppe. And music, song, and dance play a very important role in making these interconnections happen here. For one thing, I'm going to go to this image here, which if you were part of the presentation before this, dealing with art, this is one of those one of the paintings. It's not a painting from that was talked about, but it is a painting that imitates some famous paintings about life in Mongolia. This is a painting done by a lama at the turn of the century, depicting life within one of these settings here, within one of these areas here. In talking about how communities have to work together in order to survive, one of the points about this is that Mongolian families don't live by themselves in the Typically they live within small family encampments, which go by the name ales. So you see a number of gers coming together, a number of families, kind of an extended family coming together, sharing their herds and sharing the duties of everyday life that have to get done. And I love this picture because it shows some of the duties that are there on an everyday basis. You have the young women and girls down there picking up dung to be used in the animals here. You have the milking of the animals in the morning, the slaughtering of the sheep up there. The boys are taking the horses out to the herds, very typical. Even the dog is up there chasing my wolves. I mean, the dog has a job to do up there too, you know, all these things. In this place here, music plays a very functional role in here. It's not just a matter of entertainment, it also serves functional purposes, such as when this woman goes out to give milk to the little baby, she's probably singing a song while she's doing that as a way to calm the animal. When I went out in the mornings with the mother to milk the goats and the sheep, she would sing songs to them to calm them, hopefully giving them more milk. The boys say that when they would take their horses out to the pasture to herd, they would take their fiddle out with them to calm the herds, and they eat more grass. You know, by calming the animals, allowing them to eat more of this food, they become fatter, right? Fatter animals, that's more food, a better chance of survival. Here's music playing a functional role within these kinds of environments. Also, the music helps in building these kinds of communal relationships as well. In the evening, you can just imagine here in this kind of setting here, in the evenings after dinner, after work, people come together and they sing, they dance, they make music. Building bonds as a family through this here. If you think of that video we just saw here of the herder, a situation where you have people to get together and just make music. There is no, let's see here. There's no real concern for quality. The fact is, the focus is on participation. Basically, everybody is expected to participate through songs, through dances, through making music. There are very few people who are very specialized in skills. It's something more of a general skills that everybody's expected to participate in. And then during festivals or on special ritual days, the point is lots of people will come together from surrounding regions to participate in the singing and the music and the dancing, thereby music serving a role of building a larger community kind of structure as well. So here's music serving these kind of roles of helping each other in a sense. Now I did want to, you know, I'm kind of lost my train here and getting kind of behind, but I do want to kind of just jump ahead and get to some of the good stuff here. One of the things I did want to show you is a video of one of the performers that we have performing tonight, a man named Singedorj, who will be performing called a humi, throat singing. And I wanted to show that. While you're getting that, if you can get that, go back to that main screen, and then you'll see something called Singedorj. While you're doing that, let me say one other thing here. Is that music, in another way it's used in this setting here, is to help ground the performance. Actually, before we begin this, let's just wait this here. This is one of the points I want to make here, is that this music helps to, that music is grounded to the culture, to the situation there on the ground. Fiddle players have told me that they usually make their instruments drawing from wood from local trees. In that sense, this is a musical instrument that's associated with this particular place here. I've also heard them say that when they make the horse's head, they fashion it after a horse. Some of them say they fashion it or paint it after a horse that they know, a favorite horse. Mend-Ooyo talked about the way in which his grandfather's instrument was specifically designed after a horse that they knew, that they had in mind, actually kind of mythical horse, but all the same, this is a horse that they designed, and they are, it attaches this instrument to this family and this particular place. Also, sometimes when you're tonight in the folk performance, you're going to hear the musicians performing gallops on their fiddle. Dun, dig it on, 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 dig it on. Okay, or neighing, like when a horse neighs, imitating a horse neigh, woo, on the fiddle itself. Okay, This is because these are things that are part of the herders' everyday lives. So this is another thing that connects the music to their everyday lives and makes it relevant to them. Now, I want to turn to this video here of Singadorj, who we were out with him traveling around visiting herders and music. We took a stop here, and he says, "I'd like to sing a song for you, a Kumi song." And this is what he said before he went up there. He says, "A long time ago, I was walking in Dolphin Song, which is a nearby county, in a dry river gorge where there were enormous rocks. At the time, a tune came to my heart, and I would like to sing it for you in this very memorable place." Okay, so let's So for Singadorj, this place is filled with memories, and these memories are associated with melodies. The music and the melodies and the memories all come up together and intersect with one another. And so wherever he walks in this region is filled with song melodies as well as memories. So it's this interconnection here, this music being grounded in a very particular sense of space. This is also very characteristic of music in the countryside like this here. We can take this a step further, and I'm not going to go into this in much depth here, just to say that the location where we're at there is just outside the mountain chain you see back there is the Jargalant Mountain. Now Jargalant Mountain is just over the edge there is a little community of Chandaman, which is where he grew up. So this is his homeland that he's at. And also it's considered to be that Chandaman is the place where Kumi has its origins, where the herders say that the mountain spirit, taught them how to do Kumi. Okay? So in a sense, by singing Kumi before Jargalant Mountain, this is in a sense of showing respect to the mountain, of giving back to the mountain what the mountain gave to them. And this is, we can go into this in more depth here, but this is one to say that this is an example of this kind of spiritual interconnection between the herders and the countryside, or the spiritual world, which is very important for their survival as well. I'm being very, very vague here because I just wanted to set out these very basic ideas here as to this traditional world, this world of the folk. Things really changed when we, if we can go back to the PowerPoint slide. So the elements that we've been talking about here, and sorry, we have to go through this here. These are all the different regions that we were working in. And these are some other things I wanted to show if we had time. Here we go, okay. So everything I've been talking about up until now has been kind of setting up the baseline ideas about this Oksatmi music that is connected to the way of life of the people, the herders out there. It's participatory. It's bound up in their everyday lives and in their everyday realities, and it's also connected with ideas and memory and in specific places. In 1920, though, with the turn of the People's Revolution, we have an enormous change in society. We have really the beginning of a new culture in Mongolia. And that's the larger point I wanted to make here, is that this is really, from 1920s forward, we have the development really of a new musical culture in Mongolia. This idea of a horse bypassing capitalism and going straight to socialism just gives you a sense of how optimistic the nation founders were throughout the 20th century, how they could take Mongolia into this new world. And you see this here in terms of the kinds of institutions that were established in education, building education networks along this way, building schools. This then found parallels in the musical world as well, with building music schools, and lots of different varieties here. Music schools, musical institutions. You have the rise of professional instrument making as well. So here they brought in the instrument maker from Moscow, who was trained in Italy to make violins, brought in to teach them how to make better horsehead fiddles, better in the sense of more European style. You see the rise of professionalism in Mongolia as well. The separation of the performer and the audience. You didn't see this in the folk world, in the world of the tent, where everything is really intermixed. Here you have a really profound separation between the performers and the audiences, both physically and also symbolically as well, like in their dress and how they work, how they sit, and what they do, just in their jobs as well, and their location. No longer are we sitting in no longer can we really identify the location here. Okay, I have to stop, but I think you're getting a sense of where I'm going with this here, that we have in contemporary Mongolia, since the 1920s forward, really the development of new musical culture that is profession-oriented, that draws from European influences like this, but clearly is rooted in the folk culture. It's this mixture of musical styles. The international, the global, along with the folk styles, creating something entirely new, which is what the Sharav was talking about.
Today I want to address you about the development of arts in Mongolia, especially the education of arts, in particular painting and drawing.
자, манай сургуулиуд одоо дэлхийн урлагтай харьцуулсан бол өдөө 65 жил
In comparison with world culture, our Institute of Arts is only 65 years old. It's only 65 years old.
자, үндсэн түүх нь бол 1930-аад оноос тухайн үеийн нийгмийн байдал бол ардын гар урал хэрэглээний түвшиндээс нь за мөн яг Босролын нэг сургууль заагууд шавийн анхны эрдэмтдүүд жишээ нь шавийн Монгол зургууд бол яг шавийн дандаа шашны тийм
It basically started in mid-1930s, and it started as just simple teacher to student art classes, but in mid-1930s they started making it more official and founded the first art school in Mongolia.
За ардын засаг ялсны дараагаар зөвлөлт тухайн үеийн зөвлөлт холбоот улсын зураач урчууд ирж Монголын хэсэг залуучууд шиг зургийн бүлгэн байгууллаа.
So after the socialist revolution in Russia, the first Russian painters and artists came to Mongolia in mid-30s, and they established first a group of Mongolian young people who wanted to learn about the painting, about the art.
За энэ үед төр засаг үе ардын засгийн үеэс зураач урлагаас зориулаад зураг урлагийн газар гэж байгуулагдаад тэрний хажууд оройн сургуулийг байгуулж энэ Монголын дүрс урлагийн анхны үндсэн суурь тавьсан.
So the first basis for as I mentioned was established during this time, and the first classes started like evening classes. After work, people would come and take classes on arts.
За тэгээд 1950-ад оноос эхлэн энэ зүй толгойд улсын зураачдаар заалсан шавнар Орсын албаны одоо тухайн зүй толгойд сураад тэгээд 50-ад онд ирээд одоо сургуультай багшаар ажиллаж ирсэн.
So the first students who took those classes, evening classes, they went to that time Soviet Union, and they had formal education in Soviet Union, graduated from colleges and schools, art schools in Soviet Union, and during the 50s they came back and started teaching their own classes.
За 50-с 1960-аас 70-аад оны үед бол энэ ирсэн зураачдууд яг социализмын давалгаанд байсан. Жоохон хаагдмал байсан. Тухайн үед бас өөрийнхөө хүсэл зорилгоор өөрсдөө юм хийж
So in 1960s, from 1960s to 1970s, it's a socialist era in Mongolian culture. So that time everything was mainly prohibited, so it was very much influenced by the ideology of socialism.
За тэдний шавнар дараагийн ээлжинд одоо 70-аад он 80-аад оны үеэр Орсын албанаас болон Герман, Чех, Болгариудад төгсөж ирж энэ бол 1980-ад оны үе маш их олноор төгсөж иржсэн тийм үе.
So the next, so to say, generation of artists were started going to other countries than Soviet Union. So for example, they went to Germany, to Czechoslovakia, and other countries, and they came back around 1980s, which is the second wave in cultural life of Mongolia. And this was more widespread and more diverse population among artists.
За яг энэ үеэр бол 1980 оны сүүлээр социализм ерөнхийдөө дуусч одоо арчлал гарахын өмнөх үед манай дүрсгүүрийн энэ олон төгсж ирсэн хүмүүс бол эргэлт хийсэн одоо тухайн үеийн сэргэлт болж ирсэн. Тэр үед одоо абстракционизм, авангард бүх төрлийн өрсөлдөөр зэрэг хөгжиж ирсэн.
So basically, these second generation artists were the first who founded the modern art in Mongolia, like abstract art, modern art. So these were people who basically laid the foundation of modern art in Mongolia.
Тэгээд 90-ад онд ардсан хувьсгал яаснаар Монголын дүрсгүүрлэг маш чөлөөтэй болж за ингээм 1992 онд дүрсгүүрлийн коллеж байгуулагдсан.
So under the influence of the democratic changes in 1990, the first School of Art, College of Art was founded in 1992, and it was the first way when the freedom of expression really took ground and took place in artistic life of Mongolians.
За ингээд 94 оноос хойш дунд сургуулийн төвшөнд явж байгаа 1996 онд дээд сургуулийн статустай болоод тэгээд тухайн үед бол цөөхөн 10-аад мэргэжлэр бакалаврын зэрэг тасчиж
is the romantic Mongolian lifestyle. He graduated from Mongolia National University with a degree in pedagogy, and he also received a master's degree in arts and culture, as well as a doctorate in literature. He's taught for several years. And then he became the literary editor for Mongolian radio. And in 1981, he was the general editor of National Mongolian Television. From 1900 onward, he's been executive director and vice president of the Mongolian Cultural Foundation, which he became president of actually in 1994. He's also the president of the Mongolian Pen Club, so it's interesting to know that this literary organization is active and healthy in Mongolia.
I'm not good translator, so suddenly I become translator in this event. So if you don't understand my English, so please ask a question again. So his greeting, he says, hello everyone, and thanks for coming to my talk. So I'm going to present in my native language in Mongolian.
자, 비 오늘 몽골초땡 인 머름 고르테 사이딩 어떤 공 안에 어떤 무슨 힘과 어떤 세들이 나비들 다른 소리들 어떤 그냥
I'm going to talk about the Mongolian musical instrument. It's called Murunghor, horse head fiddle. So I'm going to talk about the concept and the meaning of this instrument. But eventually when I talk, my friend Peter Marsh is going to add some contribution for this topic.
비부터 몽골생 소음 없는 해가 다 해다 마시청나게 생기고 벌써 아까 가게니까 다 마시청 아마니를 머른 거 때문에 머리에서 또 어떻게 뭐
I was born in the southeastern part of Mongolia, in a very countryside, and so when I grow up in Mongolian Great Steppe, and my father was a musician who played in horsehead fiddle.
자, 그래 만화윙 아까 만화 아빠 맹가순정 아롱 내고 돌승 어떤 인지 또
My father was born in 1911, so if he is survived today, but it's going to be 100 years anniversary for him today. But so my father's horsehead fiddle was made by my grandfather. He was also a herdsman. Those great parents also were musicians and made Murunghor. This horsehead fiddle culture is transparent. It is transferred from generation to generation. I didn't get such talent to become a musician, a Murunghor musician, but I just obtained something from my dad. Especially, I love this instrument. I write about this instrument. We can think Murunghor is just that it is it's kind of book which one is everything is written down in all Mongolian cultures. Everything is written down in a sutra form. Sutra means in book form. It is just a tool.
эсвэл одоо нутаг хөшөөний улсын хүүхдэд холбоотой ялангуяа Монгол хүний дүүхэд морьтой холбоотой учраас морины дүүхийг түүний явдлыг баяр унагийг морин хоорынхаа айлгон шинжээж зохиогоод дараа үедээ хүлээлгэж өгдөг. Дараа үеийн дараагийнхаа үгтэй байж байгаа.
So all these cultural elements, which Mongolian cultural elements, it is recorded by Murunghor. So all local traditions and all local history, then people in the next generation to read through Murunghor. Especially Mongolians describe a lot by music about horse. So I think that Murunghor is just was like tape recorder from previous generation to past all the records from previous generation to today's current generation, and it is just has role of recorder. So, for example, my dad's horsehead fiddle contains a couple of legends of camel and legends of horse. So those one is transferred through my father's Murunghor. So I wrote about it some articles in my book.
За одоо би гол нөгөөхөн гол зүйл хэрхэн зүйлээрээ
I will tell you very few highlights of my book.
Энэ одоо морин хуурна томор харуулж байгаа. Монголчуудын сэтгэлгээ, гүн ухаан, түүх боломжлол яаж энэ морин хуурын бүтээсэн зохиолч дотор үлдээж хассан бэ гэдгийг би таамаглаж байна.
I will describe how Mongolians' knowledge and how history, everything is it is preserved in a морин хуур.
За жишээлх юм бол морин хуурын одоо тэргүүн байгаа.
It's head part of морин хуур.
Энэ морин хуурын одоо тэргүүн дээр нь бол энэ миний аавын хуур та аавын аав Даринг нутгийн жаахан шарав гэдэг одоо алдартай бүлэг дууны бүлэг жаахан шарав гэдэг гайхамшигтай уртын дуу. Тэр одоо морины тэргүүнийг одоо шийдсэн байдаг.
So this one is horse head. This horse head is actually imitated at Jaahan Sharak. This is a famous horse. Which one is people still sing song about this horse. Those horses' image is directly transferred into this horse head, corrupted.
Тэгээ та бүхэн тэрмээс сонсон баг морин хуурын үүсэлтэй холбоотой хөхөн амжилтын гомог гэж бай. Тэр хөхөн амжилтууд өөрийнхөө одоо хамгийн сайн морийг өгөхөд нь энэ өөрийнхөө морины талаар дөөрэж хуурын тэргүүн дээр шийдээд морин хуур үссэн гэдгийг гомогтой.
So origin of legend is how the first made horse head feather. That is, they called the legend of Khön Angel. This is a person who actually initially invented and just designed this modern hore, and it is symbolized his horse head.
Өнөөдрийн энэ алдартай морин хуурчдаас хуурдаж байгаа хуурийн тэргүүн дээр энэ ямар морины одоо тэргүүнийг хийсэн юм бэ гэх юм бол олон хуурчид ямар нэгэн одоо түүхтэй бодтой морины тухай юм. Ягаад гэвэл ийм боломжтой юм.
So if you ask any musician who play horse head fiddle, what image of this horse or what kind of horses presents on your modern hore, mostly those musicians can tell about it, because everyone just it is transferred from previous generation and they know which horse is presented by this instrument.
Энэ морин хорыг бүтээж байгаа мастер ч гэсэн өөрийн сэтгэлд байгаа хамгийн одоо сайн морины нэрээр тэрний одоо тэргүүнийг өгөөж байна.
So if the craftsman who made this modern hore also symbolize the best horse from his mind, and they just show image on this modern hore.
Хоёр дахь нь бол одоо морин хорын цаар буюу гингэр цаар энэ юм. Энэ бол одоо бөөгийн одоо гингэр энэ морин хорын цаар хоёр бол үндсэндээ одоо нэг багшилтай.
So this is a lower part of modern hore. This box is called tsar in Mongolian language. It actually symbolizes shamanic drum of a shaman. So.
Юунд бөөд одоо бөөгийн гингэрэг бол тэр бөөгийн хонгодын унаа хөлгөн болдог бол морин хорын цаар бол мөн энэ дуу аялгооны унаа хөлгөн юм байна.
So shaman's drum is his horse. So then a musician also will symbolize this box is also horse of this music, legs or just horse of this music.
Тэгээд морин хорын энэ тэргүүн энэ цар хоёрыг одоо холбож байгаа энэ зүйлийг сум гэж нэрлэдэг морин хорын сум.
So the middle part of modern hore, which one is connect head, side, and lower box, which one is called in Mongolian language sum. Sum means arrow.
Барайд ингэж татдаг одоо хөрөөдөд дуурах энэ ном гэж.
So which one is what's called in English? Bow. The bow is also in meaning it's Mongolian language is same as bow. Yeah.
Тэгэхээр өөрөөр хэлэх юм бол энэ номыг татхаар энэ сум газраас энэ цар бол газрыг бэлэгдэн, хуурын тэргүүн бол тэнгэрийг бэлэгдэн. Газраас энэ аялгын номыг татангууд дуу аялгын сум одоо тэнгэр рүү нисэж байгаа ийм зохиолчтой.
So the image is like that. The lower box presents earth, upper head presents heaven. So if you hold bow around here, and that means arrows goes up to heaven side.
Тэгэхээр морин хуурын тэргүүний одоо хажуудад энэ хоёр чих гэж хэлдэг юм л да. Энэ чангал ор. Хуурынхаа чавцыг чангалдаг энэ чангал ор.
The two sides of moron horse head is called chick. It's like direct translation is ear. But what's the English one? Tuning pig. Yeah.
머린 хуурын жигүүр дадарчиг болсон байгаа.
So this one is presents wing of a horse. A horse has feathers.
Зарим юм дадарчтай
Some moron horse also has designed with wings.
Тэгэхээр морин хуурын хуур тэргүүн дээр байгаа морин хуур бол энэ газраас дуурсаж байгаа тэр дуу аялгыг бүр одоо тэнгэр рүү одоо хүргэж өгч байгаа унаа эсдэг хөлийг унаа мань хүлгэнэ.
Yeah, this is horse head feather presents all the music just comes from earth, goes fly to heaven or sky. So this one is just moron horse itself is horse of this music.
Гэхдээ одоо тэнгэрт хүргээд уцаад морин хуурын тэргүүн газар луугаан эргэж босож ирж байгаа. Ийм дуу аялгууны битүүн одоо тасаршгүй юм тойрог юм байна.
So when the horse head is bowed a little bit down, it presents all this music goes to sky and comes back. Then it's just circulate like life.
За та бүхэн одоо мэдэн морин хуур бол юм одоо хос хоёр одоо чавцтай. Хатлаг номныхаа одоо чавцтай зөв юм гурван одоо багц чавцтай.
What's the chapter? String. Yeah. So moron horse has 3 strings. 2 is in horizontal, and 1 is in vertical.
Тэр Монголын одоо уламжлалт соёлд бол энэ гурван одоо чавцсан байгаа нийт багц адууны сүлэг юм.
So 3 strings made from horsehair.
Заавал. Тэгэхдээ 108 99 одоо бөөгийн шашны таавал 108 бөөгийн 99 тэнгэрийг үлддэг ийм татаага.
This is 2 strings of horse. This is horse's feather. It is made from horsehair. One is 99, another one is 108. Those ones presents 108 presents shaman, and 99 is shaman's heaven. 99 heavens.
Бүх чавцсан ер нь 360 дэлхийн нарыг тойрох нэг одоо өмчлөх гэж байна.
So all here is about 365. It is just same as days in year. Just that this said is one round of the sun.
Тэгэхээр морин хуурын энэ чавцыг бол заавал одоо адууны ялгасаар хий.
The main reason is making moron horse string is horse hair.
Морин хуур Монголын одоо төрийн ясалдаас эхлээд айл болгоны одоо гэрт байдаг.
So that's the main reason is Mongolian horses symbolize Mongolian culture. It is respected from respected side of Mongolian house.
Ямар ч одоо бурхан шүтлэггүй айл ч гэсэн хоймрол ягаад гэвэл морин хуурууд ер нь Монгол нүүдэлчдийн одоо бурхан шүтэн одоо болох ийм одоо зохиомжоор зохиогдсон.
Yeah. Even people don't have specific religious belief, still they keep moron horse in after section, an important part of home, because it is so respected item in Mongolian life.
Ингээд морин хуурууд монголчуудын хүн ухаан, язгуур соёл, уламжлалт зам бүх зүйлийг одоо өөрийнхөө нэг бүтээлийн зохиомжинд шингээсэн.
The moron horse contains Mongolian heritage, culture, knowledge, and all Mongolian privileges.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sharav, who is a composer. He was also born in a settlement southeast of in this case, the birthplace of Genghis Khan. And he learned to play the morin hour from his father. And he also took up the accordion, so he has a broader basis in music, and then went on to an incredible education in music in the Department of Music. He was educated in music, first at the Musical and Choreographic College, and then in the Department of Musical Composition at the Ural Conservatoire in 1983. He became an elementary school teacher of music and began to compose children's songs, actually, and then in 1975, he went on to the Ekaterinburg Conservatory in Russia, where he was taught, and this is extremely interesting, I think, he was taught to link his native folk music with European styles. Member of the Silk Road Ensemble, he's written 3 symphonies, 4 ballets, 8 concertos for folk instruments with symphony orchestra, 23 soundtracks for films, 200 songs, 23 romances, and numerous children's songs. His music for folk instruments has been performed worldwide. So let's welcome Sharav.
Greetings. I just came yesterday, and I would like to greet everyone that came here today. So I heard people talk for a long time, but before I speak, I would like to share a piece from my work. So I am the second generation of the new generation of music in Mongolia. So this new generation is from 1911 to the present date, from European influences to Russian influences. Around 1930s, one of the first musical groups and bands started forming. Okay, so the first musical symphony was composed in 1955. So in 1963, the first opera house is built in Mongolia. So in 1972, the actual body of a symphony and the opera house actually combining together as a whole to represent like an official harmony. Present.
Таван данхны симфони тогтсноор Европын хөгжмийн боловсролтой тийм хөгжмийн зохиолчдын үйл ажиллагаа гэсэн. урлагийн байгууллагууд манай шинэ үеийн урлаг Европын одоо соёлын нөлөөнд Оросын хөгжмийн урлагийн нөлөөнд байсан ийм хөгжижсэн энэ урлагууд их залуухан ерөөсөө 60-70 жилийн түүхтэй хэлэх гэсэн юм.
This new generation that I spoke with the European influence is, I want to tell you, is that it's a very young generation. It's only about 70 years.
Мэдээж монголчууд бол олон мянган жилээр хөгжүүлсэн өөрийн гэсэн одоо хөгжмийн том соёлтой орно.
Of course, our musical culture is developed over thousands of years.
Энэ хөгжмийн соёлын хамгийн гол тулгуур нь утгын дуу.
The main foundation of this the Mongolian music culture is utgын doo, which is like a long, or I don't know how you translate it. Long song.
Утгын дуу бол ерөөсөө монголчуудын хөгжмийн урлагийн сэтгэлгээний гол суурь юм.
So this the long song is the main foundation for the artist's artistic side.
Тэгээд мэдээж хэрэг сая ярьсан морин хуу утгын дууг дагаж бий болоод эхлээд утгын дууг дагаж тоглодог хөгжим байсан бол сүүлдээ бие дагаад мэдээж том урлагийн одоо Монголын хөгжим том зэмсэг болж хөгжсөн.
So the horsehead fiddle started out accompanying the long song, but as it progressed, it became its own musical.
Энэ хоёр одоо гол зүйлээс гадна одоо Монголын мужик, дуу, шашны хөгжим маш олон үндсэн одоо суур төрлүүд байна.
artists before, like a long time ago, I grew up and learned music in the same environment as the artists before a long time ago, which was in the countryside, same conditions.
миний өссөн орчин тэгээд хожим одоо боловсрол олсон энэ хоёр орчин бол хоорондоо шал өөр байсан.
Where I grew up and where I learned or my musical or poetic, what I learned is two completely different sides, two completely different environments that I want to actually express.
Мэдээж хэрэг манай монголчуудын олон зуун жил тэр хөгжүүлж ирсэн урлаг нь тэр ахуйтайгаа мэдээж холбоотой. Ахуйгаас гарсан.
So the music that is now is derived from the environments that these people grew up on.
13 дугаар зууны үед Чингис хааны үед монголчууд зөвхөн цэрэг дайны явдлаар хүчрэх болсон биш. Ерөөсөө угаасаа сэтгэлгээ тэгээд энд хөгжижсэн урлаг бүх зүйлээр хүчрэх болж чадсан.
In the 13th century, during the Genghis Khan era, we became famous for not just our military might or barbarics. We became strong because of our rich cultural with our rich culture and with everything that's going on. What else?
Энэ үед яг 13 дугаар зууны үед морин хуур, уртын дуу тэгээд бусад дагалдах урлаг бүх юм жинхэнэ хөгжлийнхөө яг юу одоо бүрэн цогц болж одоо хөгжиж чадсан.
So all these horsehead fiddle, long song, and other arts collaborated and made the whole body as a Mongolian culture and music together to make it like I don't know make it strong.
Чингис хаанаас хойш 14-15 дугаар зууны үеэс эхлээд манай Монгол орн бол урд хойд хоёр том хөршийн хооронд жоохон тийм хаягдсан маягтай ийм хаагдмал орн болж үлдсэн.
Mongolia becoming such kind of like close between Russia and China was, in one hand, it was beneficial to Mongolia, but on the other hand, it was like not really beneficial to Mongolia, I would say.
14-р зууны үеэс Монголын урлаг руу нэмж орсон нэг том давлгаа бол Монголын бурхан шашин 3 дахь удаага Монголд хөгжихдээ өөрийнхөө шашны хөгжим маш том давлгааг дагуулж орж ирсэн.
One of the new wave came into Mongolian history and culture starting from 14th century, as you know that Mongolian Buddhism came into Mongolia for the third time, was that it brought its own music and culture together with into Mongolia.
3-ын бүжгээс эхлээд шашны одоо янз бүрийн үйл ажиллагааны зан үйлийн энэ хөгжмүүд бол монголчуудын сэтгэхүй урлагийн сэтгэлгээнд гүн улмөр байсан.
The Mongol Buddhist religious dance, which is called Tam dance, as well as Buddhist religious like music and culture, brought some like good contribution into the mentality of the Mongolians as well as into the development of the Mongolian music.
Өөр гаднаас одоо ямар нэгэн хөгжмийн урлагийн хувьд гаднаас ямар нэгэн нөлөө 20 дугаар зууны ихийг хүртэл ерөөсөө орж ирсэн.
I can say that there was no other influences into Mongolian music and culture until 20th century except this Buddhist religious like music.
Энэ ашигтай байж болох тал нь бол урд бий болгосон одоо энэ өөрийн гэсэн урлагаа улам боловсронгуй болгож сонгодог хэмжээнд хүртэл хөгжүүлэх болсон монголчууд.
As I said, beneficial to the Mongolian culture and music development is that Mongolians had an opportunity to improve the development of the Mongolian music and culture along with the Buddhist religion.
Энэ олон зуун жилийн хугацаанд монголчуудын ингэж хөгжүүлж ирсэн уртын дуу, морин хуу, хөөми, бусад урлагууд бол цааш нь одоо хөгжүүл болохооргүй төгс шийдлийг олж ингэж одоо өндөрлөлтний өмнө монголчуудын бүтээсэн нэгэн том баялаг болж үлдэж байгаа маа.
As you know that within these several hundreds of years that Mongolian traditional music, such as like Khomi, as well as lawn song and the other like musical part, has become into the top like step of the development, so that like it can be spread out into the rest of the world as the well-developed musical like tendency, I would say.
Бидний одоо манай үеийн уран бүтээлчдийн тэр дотроо миний уран бүтээлийн гол суурь энэ саяын миний ярьдаг одоо ардын урлагууд гол суурь нь болж байна.
I would say that like for the music composers of my generation, this traditional music, traditional culture, traditional like music became one of the like fundamental basis for us, that we were influenced. Of course, that we had some influences from the Western or from the European like music into our work.
Би түрүү хэлсэн би Монголын одоо шинэ үеийн хөгжмийн урлагийн 2 дугаар үеийн төлөөлөгч гэж хэлсэн. Миний дөрвийн хүмүүс тухайн хэлэх юм бол бидний багш нар одоо тэр Европын хөгжмийн соёлоос сурч тэдний одоо дуурайж тэднийтэй ажилласан симфони үүсгэж ингэж тэмүүлж анхны дуур симфонуудыг зохиосон.
When I mentioned to you like chronological like data of the Mongolian music development, or like modern Mongolian music development, I told you that that I'm a representative of the second generation of the Mongolian music composers, who's been educated in the European style. So I would say that like my generation as well as my previous generation, the first generation of the composers wrote like symphony as well as like operas or ballet music, which was started from the first generation. From our generation, we had a little bit like slightly bit different goal.
As
like the previous generation tried to just kind of learn from the European style and compose symphony and orchestras or like music in the European style. Our generation had some kind of like goal that we tried to bring the Mongolian traditional music into what we were like composing.
миний хувьд бол энэ олон уран бүтээлийг хийхдээ энэ одоо бодлогын үүднээс энэ зорилгын үүднээс хийсэн юм аа.
When I composed all of these like number of work that I mentioned, I had like this whole heart to bring the Mongolian traditional music into my work.
Маргааш нөгөөдөр 5 Stanford энэ чиглэлээр хийсэн миний 2 бүтээл байна.
At the Stanford University on the 5th of February, there is going to be like 2 of my work to be, that you can hear in this like style that I had this mind. I would like to welcome if you all like can come and like listen to my music on the 5th. And I would like to end my session that having another of my piece of work for you all, but unfortunately the loudspeaker is not really perfect, so apologize me for this technical problem. Thank you for your attention.
Can you describe what the specific characteristic of Mongolian painting versus other type of painting? Is it specific in difference in the media, or in the style, or in the scenery, or in techniques? Can you share that?
манай юу бол ерөнхийдөө ихэнх дандаа зөвхөн сурсан дандаа болмоор юм шиг. Тэгээд 10 бол дандаа барааны Европын стилтэй тэгээд гэхдээ одоо манай Азийн турист бол ерөнхийдөө Азийн амдрал бүтээн байгуул хэлбэрийн сүүлийн чиг хандлага юу философи
The argument about authenticity really doesn't come up that much in the musical culture, because especially after, in the period of socialism, the point was to kind of move away from the authentic, move away from what was in the past to something new, to create something new. So the new in the folk world was considered to be more important, and what melded together with the European and other global influences was considered to be something to be celebrated. And what was going on in the countryside was basically ignored, let go. So it's a really different kind of, a different set of values, I think.
Another question about music. I'm wondering if there's been any influence in Mongolia to Turkoman music or Central Asian music as a subject.
You mean in the tradition of Mongolian music, has there been Central Asian influence?
Yeah.
I think there has, in terms of neighboring peoples who are considered to be part of Central Asia, such as the Kazakhs, let's say, or the Tuvans, considered to be kind of more Central Asian. And there is the influences from there, but I would probably turn this maybe over to Mend-Ooyo or Sharav. If there's any Central Asian influences in folk music.
이거를 이런 음식 조작 비슷해. 약간 오늘 композитор музыкалчууд ихтэй энэ асуудлын дараа боддог аюулгүй. Манай Монгол улс дөрөв дээрс 13 дугаар зууны үед олон улсыг жишээ нь Батхан гэхэд Европ, Оросын одоо нутаг дэвсгэрийн ихэнхийг эзэлж 200 жил суусан. Худаагаас эхлээд хятад 100 жил болсон. Гэхдээ бидний тэр бүтээс урлаг хоорондоо бие биедээ нөлөөлж байсан мэдээж.
I'm a pure composer. I'm not a researcher. That's what I just would like to express my own opinion on the question that you asked. As you know, as I mentioned in my presentation before, that since 13th century of the history, Mongolian, the great empire has ruled many different countries. For example, as you know, Bathan, ruled Bathan, and his descendants ruled Russia for 200 years. Kublai Khan, ruled was king in China for 100 years, and so on. So there must have been some kind of influences between the music of the nations, of the countries that they have stayed in.
Гэхдээ одоо Монголоос өөр газар уртын дуу байхгүй. Миний хамгийн гол гайхаад байгаа юм. Японд уртын дуу гэдэг жижигтэр эсрэг хэлбэрийн уртын дуу байна. Өөр газар уртын дуу байхгүй. Тэгэхээр тухайн үедээ нөлөөлж байсан ч гэсэн олон зуун жилийн дараа энэ нөлөөл буцаад арилдаг тал байдаг юм шиг байна. Энийг бод.
So in my opinion, as you all know that there is no other place in the world which has traditional long song. As you know, there is some kind of shortened, how do you say, not really long song, but semi-long song in Japan, in the Japanese traditional music, whereas there is no other country in the world which has pure long song. So I would say from this, I would say that at that time of the history, perhaps they have influenced to each other a bit, but over the years, it just these influences just release. I mean,
there is no influence left, or no influence kept, I would say.
I'm wondering if the radio